Hello, welcome back to All for United WSC. Another week of games, eh? We're back in the FA Cup on Sunday, as you'll well see from the title. That's why you're all here to talk about that. So we've actually got a good, nice, even split this week with 2 United and 2 Lewes fans. We had that confirmed before we went live, by the way. It is said Lewes. So as you would have seen when we live reacted to the draw a few weeks ago, Sarah straight away, Lewes fans tell us Northerners how to pronounce it.
Like the Southerner told you. The Southerner told you, and nobody believed me. It's outrageous.
It is definitely Lewes, not Lewes. So there we are. We'll dive straight into it. I'll actually come to both of the Lewes fans across the bottom, Aidan and Ash. Just ask you both in terms of how you're feeling kind of ahead of the game, really, from your perspective. Because obviously United are fully expecting, I guess, to go through in this. But what is the kind of feeling from your fan base and how you're viewing the game? Because obviously we spoke to some Sunderland fans before that game, and it was very much for them. You know, it's good for the club because obviously big attendance, big pull from that point of view. But are you looking at it in any other way apart from that, or do you actually think there's a real chance here we can get something from it? That's an open question to both of you. Whoever wants to go in first on that one. You are both muted though, so whoever wants to go.
Okay. Well, I'll pop in. Thanks. First of all, thanks very much for having us on. It's great to take part in this. It's always great to have some chat before a game, and we have an affinity with United. We had some good games with them a couple of seasons ago in the Championship, so we've been looking forward to seeing you back at the Pan. But you're a different side. So expectations-wise, I would say we're realistic. We're expecting an incredibly tough game. We don't expect to see too much of the ball, and you're probably going to pass us to death. We've got a beautiful playing surface. It's a hybrid Premier League standard pitch, nylon weave with grass growing through it, so it's a real top of the line pitch, laser flat. So your players are going to have an absolute field day on it. So from that point of view, we're not expecting any levelers or any upsets. But in terms of the game itself, I think we've proven, the last couple of seasons that we play better against the top sides in our division, and we've only had one real beating this season, and that was Birmingham, and we didn't turn up. Hate that phrase, but we didn't play well in that game. But generally speaking, Bristol City, we've given them a good run every time we've played them this season. They're at the top of the tree. We beat Liverpool in the last game of last season when they were unbeaten in the league. They came down to us and we beat them 2-1. So the players will be up for it. They'll definitely be looking forward to a battle, and they will believe that they can get something out of the game for sure.
Just very quickly, Aidan, before you have your say on that, we were just saying this before we went live, so I've lost the comment. There it is. Liking the hats. Which obviously, I believe you both said that's a part of the kind of ownership.
Yeah, you see that? It says owner on the hat. So you can only buy one of the green beanies if you own a share in the club.
There we are. I'm sure that's something we're going to get into when we look at the structure, because this is something slightly different to how other clubs
I'd be calling them greenies.
Should have called them what did you say? It was like
greenies. Green and beanies. Answer smash. Bang it in.
Right. Aidan, over to yourself. How are you kind of feeling going into this? Are you kind of following on from what Ash said there, or are you looking at it maybe slightly differently? How are you kind of feeling about it?
No, I'd completely agree. Actually, we've had some tricky games recently, I think, and we've not really maybe come out as how we would have wanted to. Like a couple of defeats, like by a goal here or there. So I think if we can get like a decent showing, I think, because that's what, for clubs like Lewes of our size, something where we can get a bit of a platform and get some attention, stuff like that, I think is always going to be good for clubs our size. So having the behemoth that is Man United coming back to the Pan will really help us. And I think that as Ash has said, when we've had teams down before that are the bigger team, the squad rises to the challenge. They do seem to play better when there's a bit of pressure. I mean, there's a bit of that whole underdog thing about it. We do kind of play better when that happens. So I think realistically, I'm not going to get too overexcited, but it's always a chance. So why not?
If there's any competition that an upset is going to happen, it's certainly this one. I'm going to let Barry you answer that, because I think, TJ, you might have the wrong date, unfortunately, because I don't think it is. I know it's not.
On Twitter, it was yesterday, TJ, but thank you again, mate. Much appreciated. These Americans are behind today, aren't they? So to them, it was yesterday.
So there we are. Sporty, I see your question. I'll come back to that in just a second. But Barry, something that they both, Ash and Aidan, have both said at the start there, and it's something I was going to ask. Obviously, the pitch, and Sarah said in the comments, glad it's a good pitch because we struggle on poorer ones. Obviously, you expect, well, yeah, I'm sure you are, but expecting that to play into our advantage a little bit, because we've seen when we've gone to the likes of Durham and Sunderland, we won the game. Well, no, Durham we didn't win. We lost on penalties, but obviously Sunderland we won, but we really struggled to create anything on pitch like that. So obviously having a better quality pitch will surely be in our favour.
Well, yeah, but when we played Durham and we had them on a proper pitch, we had them on toastery, didn't we? So I think that's the difference. It is tricky when you have to go and try a different surface. The thing about Durham is that it's a 3G pitch, and they're not necessarily used to really playing on such pitches. So listen, from what I hear, I believe it's not pronounced the dripping pan at all. I've heard that it's called the Pan Zero. Is that not what you been calling it, the Pan Zero? So
that's a contentious.
If you're going to be
matter.
calling it that, I'm expecting all manner of stuff. Prawn sandwiches and the lot. So it sounds like it should be an absolute carpet to be playing on. And let's be honest, that can only be a good thing. But as I've always said, the pitch is the same for both sides. And yes, it might be a pitch that they're used to, and that's the point of it being a home game. But at the end of the day, a football pitch should be a football pitch, and what's positive about it and negative about it is exactly the same for both sides. That's why you get 45 minutes each way, or 51 if they decide to add the proper amount of time on at the end. So we'll see. But I think, absolutely, we should be able to play our game. And if we play our game, you would expect Manchester United to win, but this is the beauty of the FA Cup. You just never know.
Certainly a little bit of nervousness going to. I'll get to my kind of thoughts on that a little bit on that as to why. But there's a question for you both. I thought there would be right from the off. Can you tell us what type of style or how you like to play it, really, for people that have not watched Lewes before? I'm sure there's plenty of United fans that maybe haven't. Obviously, it would have changed from our last meeting. As you said, we played each other a couple of years ago. Maybe would have changed a lot. Well, certainly the United squad has changed a lot since then. I'm assuming Lewis's team has as well. But on that question, either of you can drop in on that one in terms of how you play as a team there.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a first crack at that. Well, we're a ball on the floor team. You'd expect that with a decent surface. The pan was pretty bumpy and lumpy and had a few twists and turns in it in previous seasons, but since we've had the new pitch, Scott Booth is an experienced coach. He likes to play the ball on the floor. We're not a kick and rush side, so I mean, again, I can't help but feel that plays into United's hands somewhat, with what we would expect to be superior fitness and pace. But that's how we play. We play through teams, and we can mix it up. We can change it up. There is a little bit of a shuffle in personnel recently because we've been without our key striker. Emily's been injured for a couple of weeks now, about 5 or 6 games I think she's actually missed. So Scott's kind of he's done some things in training and introduced a couple of players who have switched positions, and one in particular who I'm sure you'll have taken notice of is Ellie Mason, who is a real firecracker in front of goal. She absolutely she shoots. She sees the goal and she shoots. And that won't be a mystery to your people at all. But in those terms, we're a football inside. We play football the way it should be played. We like to think, play out from the back. We use width. We do have wingers. We do have people who can run with the ball, creative players. So I think from that point of view, none of that will come as a shock, or none of that will be anything that United are not used to. So again, I think it's going to be helpful.
Aidan, anything to add on to that one?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. We had a bit of a, towards the start of the season, I don't know how Ash felt, but when we kind of lost some of our key players early on, when we lost like Eddie Hack, that was a bit of a big blow for us. And we've had a couple of injuries throughout the season, and as you mentioned with Emily not being particularly well either, having to do a bit of a reshuffle. I think I will openly say when I first found out that we'd gone and put Ellie Mason up front, I was a bit kind of, what is kind of going on? This doesn't seem quite right. But then she has been playing out of her skin. She's been absolutely incredible. To score 4 against Cardiff was just, it was mad. They were incredible goals as well. But I think we have got like a bit of quality all over the pitch. We've got Paul Howes, Rebecca McKenna can deliver a ball that can just nestle anywhere. It's. I think we've got some really good players that can actually pass the ball. As Ashley said, we can pass it, we can move, we can play through teams when we need to. I've never really, I can't think of a game where I've seen us kind of just hit it and hope. Because we've never really tended to do that. We've always gone for the passing it. We'll try different formations. We'll try different personnel in the formations, but it's always a pass it rather than hit and hope. And I think that the other player I was kind of mentioning is our keeper, Sophie Whitehouse, has been some of the saves. I don't know if you've seen them on the saves of the week and stuff like that. If teams do get through to our back line, some of the saves she's made this season has been just ridiculous. So feeling quite positive about having her as well.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Aidan, as well. And Ellie Hack is a massive loss. She came to us from Brighton. She's a centre back. She was a real leader. Our captain Rhiannon Cleverley was out for a big chunk of last season, and Ellie stepped up. And losing her was a real blow. It's been a long-term injury for her. But Rhiannon's back now, and she does drive the team, and she is a passing centre back. So the way that she sets up play, she's got a great range of passing. You've got Paula Howes. I'm a huge Paula Howes fan. She's a terrific player. She gets a lot of stick. She takes a lot of attention from opposition players, but she just keeps getting up and carrying on. She's a cracking ball carrier. And Amelia Hazard has stepped up in recent weeks. She got MVP against Sunderland. She was pretty knocking on the door for that again. Ellie Mason obviously took it in the previous round of the Cup, but has set her up for at least 2 of her goals, with one particularly sublime pass across the back of the Cardiff defence that Ellie scored from. So we've got players that can bring individual skills, and they do work well together. They do pass the ball around well. I had a chat with the Sunderland guys post-match on a similar forum, and they were decrying the fact that their team's a bit of a hit and chase outfit, and that's how they played against us. And we just passed them away. We just, we passing the ball back and through the midfield, which is, again, something that the better teams are quite used to. I would imagine that United would be quite comfortable if we do get a bit of possession. They're not going to panic. They're just going to let us have the ball and wait until they get a chance to take it off us. But in our division, there's definitely 2 kinds of teams. And you talk about Durham. They're known as they're known amongst some of our clubs as Dirty Durham. They're quite physical. They like to clog in. And Sunderland not quite so much, but they had a physicality about them and also a directness about them, and we're not in that bracket. We can take it on. The players certainly won't shy away from a battle, but they'd rather play football.
Yeah, I think it's certainly going to be an interesting game from that point, because I think the games we've had currently in the FA Cup, when you're thinking of the 2 obviously teams that you mentioned, Durham and Sunderland, it was different types of games. Talking of different, Barry, there's a lot of chat in the chat about this already, about potential players that Skinner might bring in. Now, everyone who knows that watches this channel, we're not ones for just making changes for the sake of it when we're looking at team selections and things like that. It is worth mentioning this week because Skinner has hinted that he will likely make changes after the Chelsea game. It's one of the first things he said, actually, when he's talking about the FA Cup game, is that there will, well, I can't remember his exact quote now. I'm going to have to get it up while you're talking, Barry, but it was something along the lines of, when we look to the FA Cup squad next season, next week, or something like that. And then I think he said something to Jamie Spencer about potential rotation as well. So it's looking like we're going to see a couple. Obviously, there's lots of names being banded about in the chat, Barry, but if you're expecting to see anyone, is there particular players you think should come in for this? Because we're not expecting wholesale. I think we'll probably see Earps, Honor, Meyer and Millie. We're probably going to see Zellum and so on. But is there a case for a couple of changes potentially around the attacking line in particular, would you expect?
Well, I've said it once this season. Well, I've said it more than once. I said it every bleeding game during the Conti Cup. You cannot make wholesale changes regardless of who your opposition is, because if you do that, you're just opening yourself up for an even bigger banana skin. It's not worth doing. We really should have been in the next round of the Conti Cup. We know that. We weren't because we made too many changes. And you just cannot afford to do that. We're not at that level where you can change the vast majority of your side and then expect them to come in and get the same results as the first team were getting. So we cannot afford to do that. Because it's playing roulette. You lose this game, that's it. You're out. That's it. There's no do-overs. So for me, you've got to try and keep a spine. I actually quite liked Sporting with Sport Faces team. Let's get that up, shall we? Because it wasn't a bad one. Here it is. It's got to be Mary Earps. Absolutely. Blundell, Letizia and Honor. Absolutely. He suggested Mannion. I don't know. I don't know if I would drop Turner, but
I would, to be fair. I don't think Miller's been that great in recent weeks, so I don't think that's a bad player to bring in, to be fair.
Yeah, but I still maintain it's the best defence in the Premier League, in the WSL at the moment.
It's not anymore. It's not anymore.
One goal. Arsenal haven't played all their games yet, though, have they, Connor? Once they get battered by Chelsea, we'll be right back at the top where we belong with that particular statistic. I think, was she brilliant against Chelsea? No. Is anybody ever really brilliant against Chelsea? Not really. It's quite easy to be made a fool of. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be against it. If I saw Mannion in the starting lineup, I wouldn't be, sucking my teeth at Marc Skinner and be like, why have you done that? So I don't think we'd be too upset about that. It's the Casca, Zellum and Vilderbo Risa in the middle there. I'm an advocate for VBR getting a chance. I think she's earned that. I'd not be against her starting. I think Zellum needs to start, absolutely. Kel Surprise. This bit about Cascarino starting instead of Ladd, I'm not overly against that either, to be fair. And I quite like the Galton, Garcia and Russo bit. So it's not a bad team he's gone for there. I think Rachel Williams would be in with a shout of being given a chance. She's played really well over these last few games that she comes in for. And, she's always up for a scrap and deserves, I think, maybe a bit of time. So potentially drop Russo for that and give Williams a chance. But, I think we have to be incredibly careful with what we do. You can look back at the previous results. That's what I was doing. Have a little bit of research, trying to remember. And we've currently got a 7-0 aggregate against Lewes from the time way back in the Championship, 2018, 2019. But the only people that we've still got that scored in that game were, of course, Galton and Toon. The rest of them are long gone. We've got Molly Green, as we mentioned, who was, of course, the Coventry saviour, Amy Palmer and Amy Turner, and, of course, Lauren James, along with Jess Sigsworth. So lots of people that have moved on, and that's how football works. Do I expect to see some of these players that haven't played many games getting a chance? Yes, but we have got to be careful. I would much rather go with Eric Ten Hag's way of doing things, which is to go and play the game. Yeah, I know, John. It happens every now and again. This is what happens, though. You see, John, you come in, you listen, you hear sense, and eventually it drops through into your head. And now all of a sudden, you're talking like a proper fan. Well done. Love it. But yeah, I think we have got to be careful with what we're doing in terms of changing the team around. If we do too much, it'll be too easy for Lewes to take advantage of the inconsistencies and the fractures of training that there probably would have been. So, yeah, for me, don't go mad. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I think I'd expect 4 what I expect and what I want is probably about the same as well. I think Mannion probably comes into the back line because Skinner's constantly talking about her, even when he's not asked. So I imagine, obviously, he's got plans to bring her back in. Cascarino, this is somebody who's played, at PSG at the top level. I'm pretty sure she can cope with coming into a midfield. Barisa, she's earned it. I don't know why she's not played more. So again, I'd expect to see Barisa and that. Williams and Russo. Potentially, I think he'll start with Russo, and I agree with what you, Barry, said and what Sporty said. Get the game won first, if we can. Get the game won and then start making your changes. Because it's not like it's an early round or it's a group stage. This is a chance to get. I think somebody put the comment earlier. We've never got to the semi-final, I believe, at the FA Cup. Mm-hmm. This is the first chance we can get there. I think, memory. We can't.
That's another reason why we've got to do well. It's another reason why you've got to get the game won. I hate it when we go, we're 1-0 down, and then this is what happened against Chelsea. You're chasing the game, and then you've got to try and get it back. And there's no guarantees you're going to do that. So it's much easier to start with your strongest side and then change it about. And if it takes till the 80th minute before you can do that, well, then they should have pulled their socks up quicker, shouldn't they?
In answer to that question, Sarah, off the right, we've not seen her on the left. Not that much anyway. And she's played down the middle as well for her previous club. So off the right from what we've seen at United. On the rotation from a United point of view, a question to kind of Aidan and Ash really in terms of how you look at United in terms of, would you be a bit more confident if United were to make a few more changes? Or would you look at it as, United's bench is strong enough to bring players in that it doesn't really matter what team we put out? Or are you kind of hoping that he does make some changes, in particular the bigger names?
It's a double-edged sword. If you make changes, those players that are getting an opportunity that haven't had an opportunity are going to want to take that opportunity with two hands. And so what you've got is some fired up players who are trying to make a point. So if there are changes made, and I agree with you, I think that he probably will make a couple of key changes to start with. I don't think he'll start necessarily with his first WSL 11. I think he will make a couple of changes, but for the starting 11 on Sunday. But with that in mind, and having spoken to those players, I'm sure he will get them into a mindset and say, "This is your opportunity. You can stake a claim to be in my thoughts now for the rest of the season," and that will fire them up. Because he does have a bit of a challenge. Scott Booth doesn't have to fire his players up. This is as big as it gets for our players. This is what they dream about. This is the sort of game they want. They want to play against the best. United are the best, or one of the best in the country, if not Europe. And so they'll be raring to go. But for your players, the trick will be for Marc Skinner is to get them to not only not be complacent about the match, because on paper it should be a piece of cake, but to have them in a mindset to say, no, let's go out there and show what we can do. Let's really lay a marker down. And so I'm nervous if he makes changes that those players are really going to be chomping at the bit.
Kind of before we jump into giving Aidan a go, I'm having little nightmares having read this team that Joe's just popped up. He's just put this as his Lewes 11. And I was doing all right, to be fair, until I saw Cleverley. That reminded me of Tom Cleverley, which took me back to a place that I didn't really want to be in. Then I read Weir, and I'm thinking of the Man City midfielder. And then we've got Mason as well, which, of course, was a Spurs midfielder. So that midfield at the moment has filled me full of dread, and I'm a little bit shaky. Does that go along with what you guys would think? Is that the sort of 11 you would go for? Whilst you're doing that, I'm going to think I need a stronger drink. I'm a bit scared now.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, me and Joe go to the games quite often. We've got a little gang of us to go along, and often have bets on who's going to be in the starting 11 and stuff. And I think he's pretty much got. That's my first 11. I think we've got some really strong players in there. Scott's got the opportunity to rotate the position maybe of some of those players. Nice one, Joe. But I really do think, based on what I said earlier, I think that is one of the things that I'm probably the most nervous about is if Man United do decide to make some changes, those ones that do come in will think this is my biggest opportunity to make a big impression. I'm almost more worried about that than if it were to be the normal starting 11 for you playing a normal WSL game. I'm sure you'll put full effort in regardless, but if people have got that opportunity to get into the starting 11, they're gonna want to take it. So I can only back Ash completely there. I think we have got a bit of a smaller squad. I know we've got a smaller squad than what you guys have had, but I'm feeling quietly confident that we've got good people that come in from the bench to make an impact with stuff as well. We've seen some good performances fairly recently from some of the new signings that came in January that can have an impact on stuff. So I'm quite looking forward.
I see Joe had Crafty in there up top, and I'd be delighted if she started the game or at least got some game time in the game. But I'm not sure where she is on match fitness because she's missed quite a few consecutive matches. For those who don't know, Emily Kraft she's been playing in Germany. She came over end of last season, and she's good. She's got an eye for goal. She doesn't. One of the problems that we've always had at Lewes is having players who will pull the trigger. Ellie Mason is one who, because she was a fullback or is a fullback, isn't frightened to pull the trigger. She doesn't try and walk the ball into the net. She'll shoot, and she doesn't care if it goes a mile over the bar. Well, Kraft is a similar kind of player. She's a reactive player. So if she gets a through ball, she'll be on it and shoot before she's even had a chance to think about it. I'd love to see her in this game. I do not know where her fitness is. I have no idea, no insider knowledge on that. But if she's even on the bench, I'll be absolutely thrilled because I think she does give us something different. I've no idea what Kraft and Mason together is going to look like.
No,
Can't see us going two up top, to be honest. Certainly not at the beginning of the game. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what Scott does. I really want to know how Scott really genuinely views this game, Scott Booth, because all the talk this week, and I've read his notes before the game, is about teamwork and playing together as a team, and obviously that's where our strength is. If we can work hard together and play together and pass the ball and work for each other, then we will be in the game at least for a while. And it's not for individuals to try and shine; it's for the team to play well. But I wonder where he sees it in the whole pantheon of the season. Because the season's been, in my opinion, quite disappointing from a positional point of view, a league position point of view. A few weeks ago, we had a chance to go into that top half of the championship, and we're definitely top of the bottom half now. And so I wonder how he's viewing the game. Obviously, he's going to want to put on a good showing. He's going to want to give United a bit of something to think about. But ultimately, is he saying to himself, well, quarterfinal's pretty good. We'll give it a go, and if we're still in the game after an hour, then we'll probably have a crack. But other than that, I would imagine he's got one eye on the games coming up against Charlton, in particular, and then trying to get further up the table.
Just a couple of comments I wanted to highlight just quickly. Can you confirm that David Weir's is that the Rangers player, David Weir? The old
and Everton, surely.
You might remember. Well, yeah, obviously Everton as well. I remember Rangers from
weird. Fans who are older than 23 kind of will remember that David Weir played for Everton for like most of his life.
He had a lot of games at Rangers, but well, fair enough. There was I don't know about local derby, 102 miles though. I don't know about being local, but yeah, I get your point.
Just out of interest for you guys, I'll probably. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, Brighton's the noisy neighbours. To paraphrase Sir Alex, the Brighton are the big noise up the road. But for me, it's Palace. Palace is the team I want to beat every season. We did them 4-1 in the Conti Cup, and I was absolutely delighted. Did them at their place too, but unfortunately, lost at home in the league. So that's where we're at in terms of local rivalries.
But it's interesting, isn't it? You kind of in women's football, Barry. We've had this discussion when we obviously had the Liverpool game. I think women's football generates its own different rival because even though it's miles apart in terms of location, our rivalry with Durham is there because of the games that it produces. It's always a feisty game. The fans don't like each other. So we class them as a rival. But if you said to a men's football fan, "Oh, United and Durham," they're like, what's that got to do with anything? It's slightly different. Obviously, Man City's the big one in terms of rivals, but for sure, location doesn't always play the factor.
But that's how it should be, Connor. That's how it should be. That's a bit like going, I don't like trampolines. Why don't you like trampolines? Well, my dad didn't like it. Well, who cares? It's your dad who don't like a trampoline. Get on one. You might enjoy it. It's a bit of a mad thing. We're not men's football. It's women's football. And women's football has to create its own path going forward with its own fans and its own ways of doing things. And it's doing a bloody brilliant job of it. I mean, for example, women's football is showing men's football how to win international cups. So, there's a good start. Not bottling it in the final. Gareth. Anyway, I think it's really important that they do that. And you're right. Absolutely. These rivalries that are being built up through fan interactions. They're being built. Welcome to Trampoline Talk. Indeed, you should host it, TJ. Trampoline Talk with TJ. That works so much better. So there we go. But it's important that the women get the chance to get their own rivalries. It's like we all heard about when the Liverpool game was coming on and how everyone was like, "It's Liverpool. We hate Liverpool." It's like Man United men hate Liverpool. Man United women haven't played Liverpool enough to hate them. Liverpool, in terms of the women's game, are insignificant to Manchester United women until this season. This season is the season they've become even remotely important to us as a game, and that will build over time. Yes, some of these rivalries from the men's game will carry over, but equally, you've got to understand as well the fact that there's not enough men's and women's teams of the same ilk with the same level of power. For example, you go into the Championship and you start talking about some of the teams there. I mean, you've got Bristol City for a start. Bristol Rovers nowhere to be seen. So who are they supposed to have a ruck with? Then you've got and I quote this again, the London City Lionesses. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure you don't have the London City Lions. Where are they? They're certainly not in the top 92, are they? So who are they supposed to have a ruckus with? So perhaps those two should just have a little fight with each other because they've got no friends and neighbours to have a fight with. Then you've got Southampton women, Portsmouth, nowhere to be seen. Birmingham City, you'd like to think they've got somebody there. They've probably got to try and pick a fight with Blackburn, Sheffield and Coventry, even though really they're nothing to do with them. They've got to try and find these. It doesn't work if you're trying to use old rivalries. Don't get me wrong, when you're trying to get the crossovers, when you're trying to put a game on at Old Trafford, this is what I say, that's where you want your Man Cities, that's where you want your Liverpools, because the men's fans are more likely to go, all right, yeah, chance to beat Liverpool, we love a bit of that, come on then, let's go and see it. But you start going Man United, West Ham, half of them go, all right, because it doesn't have that draw factor. Whereas we'll sit there and go, yeah, absolutely, we want to batter West Ham out for that last-minute equaliser that cost us third last season. And that's how you get it, because you follow that game. So it's absolutely the right way that the women's game should be getting its own rivalries. And absolutely, I mean, where's it gone? This is the comment, isn't it? And we do. And there's no love lost whatsoever, because they are an annoying football club that have got on our nerves. And I'm pleased that we squashed that particular fly by smashing them in the FA Cup, because it was getting quite annoying. So, yeah, that's how it should be. Didn't mean to pick that one up. Exactly, though. See, I didn't even mean to click on that, but it was the right one. Spot on.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said apart from that, what John said, Birmingham Villa. I think whatever you do, that's still a rivalry. No matter, they don't have to be in the same league.
But Birmingham are in the Championship and Villa are in the WSL. It's really hard to have a rivalry when you don't play each other.
Yeah, but you could.
Oh, put them up, Villa. Or we can't, mate. Sorry, we're literally a league above you. You're rubbish.
Nah, I still think it's a good rivalry, that one. Well, it is. You know, from somebody who lives near the Midlands, it still is. I think even academy games, heated in that one, and they're not in the same league either. So,
well, in that case, Man United Leeds still won. Hang on a minute, where are the Leeds women's team?
It doesn't matter. I still think some carry over.
You can't have an argument with them, then, can you? It's the easiest win ever.
But you can still draw them. If we get Leeds, obviously we're not going to now, but if we drew Leeds, it would still be a big game. Just because we don't play them every week, it's not like the Old Firm where they play each other every single bloody week. Like, because that gets boring for the other way because you're playing each other all the time.
You're right, Bradley Connery is talking rubbish again. Yes.
No, I think you're going to get outvoted, I think, on that one. There was a comment really further up that was completely off topic I wanted to get, so I can't even find it now. There it is. Sorry, Alec, I'm going to have to disagree with you again because I actually think Borisa has proven her worth in the games that she's played. And I think, if I'm Borisa now, I'm going, well, I've come on, I've showed what I can do, and I'm still not playing. Then I'm looking a bit like, well, what have I got to do now? Because, I'd be a bit annoyed if she doesn't play at least, a certain amount of minutes on Sunday. I will be very surprised, and I wouldn't blame her for being annoyed either, because I think she's one of the ones, especially, it's in the title chance for Fringe players to shine. She's one of the ones I'd be looking at because she's earned it. There's a couple of others like that. So, yeah, I will be a bit aggrieved, put it that way. If she's not in that 11 somewhere. See, Paul's sticking on. Can meet in cup games. Exactly.
You can meet in cup games, yes, but like you take Man United, 2018 was when we were formed. So that's what I'm talking. When you say Man United Leeds, you'll be taking, again, a men's rivalry and putting it into a women's game where they've never played before. They might all turn out to be the best of friends. Oh, you're lovely, actually. How do you dislike them? It's like it doesn't work that way, Connor. You can't just keep on forcing things over there in the hope it's going to make a difference. I'll accept the Birmingham Villa one. Of course, that's always going to be a big, in the same way that United City are. But we're in the same league. So it builds more. It becomes something. At the end of the day, Man United Leeds, it's only going to be a thing if Leeds beat us. We're not genuinely, if we drew Leeds in the FA Cup this year, we're genuinely not walking away having beaten them going, oh, yeah, we beat the dirty Leeds. Because why do we care? We've never played them before. We're not fussed. Who are they? It's like getting upset with some random person that's just walked across the street.
I tell you something, I was speaking to somebody yesterday from a team who has played Leeds women recently. They live up to their name, and I think they're quite a big physical side as well. For anyone who's played Leeds women's side, they're quite a feisty team, that's for sure. See, there we go. Don't mind disagree. We're all hopeful, that's for sure. We'll see at the weekend. A question I was going to get to, I think you've already answered though. It was to the both of you, Ash and Aidan, in terms of how you feel your season has been so far, going up until this point. I think, Ash, I think you answered it a bit earlier, saying you were disappointed in your season so far. I mean, what's your kind of expectations, or like what were they at the start of the season up to now in terms of where you thought you'd be? Obviously, I think you're 7th in the league at the moment.
Yeah, we're 7th. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we started the season with 4 draws. And one of those was against London City, who have proven to be, although they don't have much of a following, which they're a club in our division that teams don't seem to warm to because they're doing things in a very different way. They're more of a franchise club. They lost, I think the accounts show they lost 800 grand last season, and they're not even batting an eyelid. They're not trying to grow the game. They're not trying to grow a following. And we got a draw against them early in the season, but we started with 4 draws. And the truth of that is, as we all know, draws will kill you. You can take the odd loss, but you've got to win games. You've got to rack up those 3-pointers, and we haven't done that. And the reason we haven't done that, and I was kind of disappointed again that in the last window we didn't bring a striker in. I'm delighted with some of the business Scott has done. I'm really pleased that Kirsty Barton's joined the team. She gives us a bit of extra muscle in midfield. Emily Craft was a great signing. But a couple of seasons ago, we got Nessie in from Scotland, and she was a player who could put the ball in the net. And we just don't seem to have those players. They don't seem to come to us. We have a lot of creative midfield players, but you've got to get the ball in the onion bag to get the 3 points. And there's just been a lot of games this season where we were one or 2 goals away from a completely different outcome. My hopes and aspirations for this season were top 5, and I've never believed that we would be ready to go into the WSL. We're nowhere near. But in terms of progression, If you look at how we've done in previous seasons in the Championship, we should be looking to move into that top half and become very comfortable in that top half, and we're not there. We're not on the same level as Bristol City, London City Lionesses, Southampton, who have had a cracking season, and Birmingham City, who turned us over quite nicely 3 weeks ago. And we're just not quite stepping to that level. There's been lots of improvement. I'm really, really happy with lots of areas of the team, of the squad. I think Scott Booth's a great manager, really happy with him. It's not a question of backing. He gets a lot of backing from the club. The club are very supportive of Scott in terms of, but it's also one of the issues that we face down where we are is we're not exactly in the Outer Hebrides, but we are in the boonies when it comes to catchment. So if you're bringing players down here, you're relocating them and you're rehousing them. So it's always been a little bit of a problem for us. We're not a London club, we're not on the outskirts of London. We're a little bit too far out. So actually bringing those players in is not as easy. So short answer, yeah, I think we can do better, and we should have done better this season. And I think we can do better after this game too. I think we'll learn a lot from Sunday.
Yeah, I'd completely agree there, Ash. I think the bit that scared me with the squad at the end of last season compared to this season was there was a huge exodus of players. We had some phenomenal players that when they left, like Lucy, Ashworth, Clifford, when players like that left, you were thinking, who is going to fill this void? Who is going to be that player for us that took on the last defender and managed to get across in? And we have managed to get some players coming, like you said, Crafty coming in has been a really good signing for us. But when we lost such a large percentage of the first team from last year, it could have gone one of two ways. And bizarrely enough, it kind of hasn't. And I'd agree with you. It's kind of it's just missing one little something just to kind of link everything together. I don't know if it's the fact that we've not had we've been playing Mason up front with Crafty types, or want to play Crafty up front with Mason, but haven't had that yet. But we've had so many injuries and stuff we've not really had since maybe the end of November. Our ideal first 11 to play together. So I think that's maybe been a bit of an limitation on what we could possibly achieve. But that being said, when the teams you were looking at who you're playing this year, there was no Liverpool, there was no big team, as it were, that got big backing behind them. It could have gone again at the start. Who was going to be the runaway team this year? I wasn't really thinking anyone in particular would run away, but Bristol City have played an absolute blinder. They've recruited really well. Their back line has been really solid, and they've surprised me with how well they have done in kind of not really seeming to be putting much out there, but they've achieved really, really well.
Well, they've got the pedigree, Bristol City they've been in the WSL. They know what it's about, and they've got some great players. And one of their highest performers is Ella Powell, who was a Lewes player a couple of seasons ago, and I really liked her. But the manager at the time didn't rate her. She wasn't getting game time, and she moved on. And what a miss that's been. So I think. You're right. It's not a car crash of a season by any stretch of the imagination. I think we would rightly expect to be 2, 3, 4 positions higher in the league than where we're at right now.
Well, I was a little bit intrigued when you were talking about what Scott Booth's intentions were for this game and wondering what he was thinking, because I heard you say obviously that you were then thinking that he might be concentrating more on wanting to get further up the league. I mean, I think the goose is cooked in terms of, like you say, promotion. That's not going to happen. Just 20 points clear. It's physically impossible. There's literally only 21 points available, pretty much. So I'd have to go some there. That would be a heck of a moment. But is that really all it is for you? Is just trying to finish as high up the table, or is there not a part of you that would really want him to just go all out, seeing as how this is a one-off match and try and get the glory?
Well, it's going all out. I don't think you do go all out against a team like Man United. I think you'd be daft because you'll be blowing after an hour, and then you're going to ship a boatload of goals at the end of the game. And that's not how Scott sets up, and that's not how he plays. He's tactically quite astute, and he will have a game plan. And I have no idea what that is for Sunday. I've got my own thoughts about what he might do, and we saw a little bit. We've seen it in recent games that he's made changes, and he's made formational changes as well as personnel. And I have to say they've all been good. We tend to typical Lewes game is we have a bit of an indifferent first half, and then things get tweaked, and then we pick up in the second half. And now on Sunday it might be all over, could be all over by half time. But if it isn't, and there are, he will make the right kind of changes, I think, to move the game around if he can. But yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to say that he's dismissing Sunday. Not at all. No, the club's very serious about it, and we would dearly love to dump you out of the cup. Absolutely no question about that. We love Man United. A lot of the people behind the scenes at Lewes were around when you guys were formed and came down and played in the Championship. And actually, they're talking about fans and rivalries. We really get on with your fans, and we've always had a good affinity with them, and we share a lot of the ethos about having away ends and about having, a good atmosphere at games. It doesn't have to be abrasive at all. It can be friendly, but it can still be a rivalry, or it can still be competitive. So in those terms, I think I just mean that when Scott's looking at the game, going all out, risking Emily Craft. Let's take Emily as an example. Aidan and I both would love to see Crafty play on Sunday, but if it means that she doesn't play another game for the rest of the season, that wouldn't be right. That wouldn't be a smart move at all. And although you're right, there's no big cheese to play for. There's in terms of the league. I do think that where you finish in the league and how you perform in the league is noted by other players, and we will need to bring players in. And if we're a team that's showing ambition and trying to climb the table, then that's a very different prospect than someone who just says, well, we're mid-table, might as well just get on the beach. I don't want to see that. I want to see my team push every game, try and win every game, exactly, try and get as high as I can.
Yeah, I was mentioning exactly that point. Like, whilst it would be good to kind of put in a performance and do well on Sunday, I wouldn't want that to be at the expense of finishing, if we could, in the top half. I think that is more important, because then you can attract a better quality of player for next season. We can kind of build upon what we've done so far with like the pitch coming in, the expansion, the various bits of behind the scenes work that the team are doing to kind of like grow the club. I think it would be dangerous, I think, to go gung ho if it's just for this one reason. So I'd like to see him be creative, but at the same time not too crazy with it. I think that would be my limit.
Find the mute button there. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Ian's obviously in the comments was there, obviously, for that first season, so it was the best trip of the season away from home. So hopefully similar things said after this.
It's like 20 minutes down the road for him.
Well, it is actually. Yeah, Ian is down that way. I mean, even for me in the Midlands, it's a good 3.5. I think it's about 3 hours from here, so it's a long trip even for me. I'm still 2 hours away from Manchester, so yeah, credit to those making the journey. I see Barry's already responded to Alec. Are you two at the game on Sunday? I'm assuming you both are.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be volunteering for a couple of hours before helping set up. I did want to mention a couple of things about the game, actually, for those people who are tuning in who are coming to the game. I did want to mention a couple of things that are happening. We are going to have a fan zone set up outside the ground, and there's going to be a lot of special events, food outlets, and that kind of stuff going on. We're having a printed program, which I don't know if you're aware, but we usually have a podcast, which is an online program with video clips and stuff and interactions. But the club, because it's a historic occasion, being the first time in quarterfinals of the FA Cup, there's going to be a commemorative program. There's going to be, and again, this has not been confirmed by the club. This is just things I've heard around the ground, but I think there's going to be some a little bit of campaigning going on, a little bit of a message sent out on maybe during the warm-ups There might be some shirts available for purchasing the ground as well that go along with that. There's going to be there's obviously, you guys will have seen some of the letter that the players wrote to the FA and to the task force that's been set up to look into the women's football and funding, and we would urge everyone tuning into this, all the guys here making comments, dig out that tweet and dig out that letter and add your name to the letter. It's really important that we get some weight behind it, because a lot of people support the idea of having of equalising the prize money. The prize money, there's so many arguments that go on about prize money. The people say, oh well, you're not putting bums on seats, so why should you get the money? But obviously you don't invest in a saturated market, you invest in a growing market, and we need to invest in women's football. And the FA, which their motto is for all, they really need to think about this. They really need to think about how they're going to help the game develop, how they're going to build the pyramid of women's football and build on the success that the Lionesses achieved last season. The only way you're going to do that is to build a really strong pyramid, and a great way to do that is to share the money that's there in the FA Cup.
Absolutely, and we're going to make sure that is one of our last things we wanted to talk about with you guys. But just finishing off on the sort of the game, we've had quite a bit of Lewes chat, and I want to throw Connor under the bus a little bit here, because there was a lot of chat about Lisa Nolson, with some of the comments that were being said there, and the fact that she's not played yet, but she's meant to have her 6 weeks of pre-season. Do you think there's any chance she's going to play any part in this game?
Yeah, I think she'll play. I don't think she'll start. I think it's still a little bit too. She only came back like 10 days ago, if that. Back into full training and integrated with the squad. No, I'd expect her to play. I don't think she'll start though. I think it'll be. Not gonna lie, I'll be very disappointed if it's Zellum Lad-Tooney again, because I'll be like, well, what's other players got to do to make a start? But I wouldn't be putting Lisa in there. Saying that, it's one of our in fact, I think it is our highest feed signing. We'd expect to see her at some point, because you don't go and buy a player for that amount of money and not play her. And I said this at the time when we signed her. So she'll feature at some point, I'm sure, and I'm sure she'll be starting games at some point towards the end of the season as well. But I don't think she'll start. Not in a. I mean, I don't know. I won't be annoyed if she does, but I cannot see it. I just don't think enough has been. You usually get a hint from managers when they're like. That's why I think Mannion will start, because she's been mentioned a lot. Lisa hasn't been mentioned all that much. So keep Lisa for Old Trafford and make her first appearance. I mean, that would be quite something as well. But again, we need to win that. We saw her at the game last season at Old Trafford at Everton. They went 1-0 up. That was a bit nervy for a bit. So, we've got to make sure we win that first before we start handing out appearances just for the crowd. There was just before we get onto the serious thing that we're going to round this up on. I know we want to talk about this equal FA Cup pay, which we'll end the show on. Obviously, fans of the show, why am I even asking this? Because I know I'm going to get outvoted again, because it's only because John has put this in a few times now, and Chris has mentioned it as well. So this is to Aidan and to Ash, really, because this is a running joke on every single show here, and I'm going to be outvoted again. I know I am. But so when you're eating burgers, do you use a knife and fork, or do you use your hands?
You smash them in your face.
Exactly that.
You smash them in. I mean, you can have a fork with your pie and mash, right? We have pie and mash and mushy peas and gravy. Best pie and mash you're going to get in a football ground down at our place, and we've got loads of variations of fries and hot dogs and all that good stuff as well. But yeah, man, I mean, if you're going to grab a burger, you're going to grab it and you're going to squeeze it and you're going to stuff it in your face.
No, not for me.
You want to add to the list? Too well to add to the list.
Yeah,
honestly,
the percentage is shrinking. Sarah's with me, but I think Sarah's the only one.
Yes, Sarah. Even massive burgers, you just got to get yourself a napkin. Do the old Ray Liotta from Goodfellas, tuck it down the top there, and just smash it in.
Unbelievable. Good man indeed. Good man indeed.
I don't know. No.
Absolutely that.
Yeah, I'm not expecting the comments to back me up. I don't know why I'm waiting for somebody else to come in and back me up because they're not.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, mate. Not going to happen.
There we are.
We throw in Sporty's question.
Oh, yes. That was the other one I was going to do before we got on to the FA Cup.
Here we go. I'll let you lead it in.
Well, the question's on screen for you both. What do you think of United's progress this season? Like I said, we had a bit of a chat about it before we went live about certain things, but where do you kind of assess United? Because I mean, among the fan base, it's not as positive as you'd expect, but we have been in this position before. Well, 3 or 4 times now, and
I follow quite a few of your fans on Twitter, and I'm a United fan. I've been a United fan since I was a kid, the men's United. And so when they formed the women's team, I got really excited. And there's a few of us down the pan who have followed United for years at the men's team. So we're fans of Man United, and we want to see you guys do well. And actually, I think Skinner gets a pretty tough gig from some of you guys. You give him a rough ride. He's juggling a big squad. He's bringing players in, not to the extent of teams like Chelsea, perhaps quite, but. I think he's done pretty well. I mean, when you look at the league position, obviously it's superb. You're in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. You've got a very good chance of going through the semis, and actually probably got a really good chance of winning the whole thing. So I think silverware is probably important to you guys, but where you're at right now, you've got to be pretty chuffed. I mean, you've only been going since 2018.
Yeah, I'd completely agree.
I guess to offer some balance to that before Aidan throws in, there's some argument that Roma are the same age as us. They're in the Champions League already and are competing in the Champions League, and they're exactly the same age as we are.
Is that not because the Italian league is way behind us in terms of competitiveness?
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
Juventus is
the balance in there, but I'm not saying I agree or disagree.
Well, put it this way: Juventus. Katie Rood came to Lewes from Juventus. She's a New Zealand international. She's up at Hearts at the minute. She's up there, and scored a really good goal against Carly Telford in the Conti Cup at the Pan. By the way, you look that one up on Twitter. But when she was not of a stand, when she came to us, I was expecting, oh wow, she's coming from Juventus, and then she came along and she's a good player, really good player, and I miss her at the times at the Pan, but actually not. The standard that she was playing at was probably, championship kind of standard. So, you've got to compare apples and apples, really.
Aidan, anything to add on that particular question?
Yeah, I just kind of say with what Ash said, and most of what we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, kind of saying, like, I think third for you guys at the minute is quite impressive. If you think about some of the heavyweights that have been in the WSL for quite a long time, have made that league their own for the last couple of seasons. To get anywhere near them at the moment, being so like fresh-faced, as it were, to being re-established, and I think to get anywhere near that, and as has been said, you're in a quarter-final of an FA Cup, maybe probably further, but we'll see what happens on Sunday. You've got a good opportunity, so I think it's one of those things that it's going to take a bit of time. You've got a big squad, find out which direction you want to take it in, and kind of go from there, really. Wait and see.
No, I think that's a fair answer. I mean, in response to obviously what Ash you said and what TJ said, yes, but I will caveat by saying Roma did hold one of the best teams in Europe and have been in women's football, Wolfsburg, to a draw in the Champions League. So they're not just in it; they're they got Barcelona in the next round. So if they do well in that, there's the argument within 5 years they've toppled some of the biggest names in women's football.
Yeah. And Liverpool beat Chelsea, and Durham managed to hold us, and these things.
No, you can't use that as an argument. Roma are sustainable.
Why can't I?
Because they're sustainable. There's a difference between a one-off game and then being consistently far in the Champions League. You can't compare Liverpool's one win to being consistent in the Champions League. Come on. But I do agree the Italian league is not as good as the WSL, that is for sure. But Roma is
a lot easier to get into it.
Well, yeah.
But there we go. Right, so we kind of just want to finish off by sort of really lauding what it is that Lewes does, because you guys are sort of nicknamed Equality FC, and it really does go down right to the grassroots of it, doesn't it? Because from my understanding, please correct me if at any point I'm wrong, which I'm sure you will do. But you guys are literally fan owned, so fans can put the money into the club. Everybody gets a voice, everybody's got that share in the club, and the budgets are exactly the same. So whatever the men are playing with, the women are playing with. If there's 20 grand going into the men, there's 20 grand going into the women. If there's 5 grand, it's 5 grand. Whatever it is, it's split equally all the way through. Is that pretty much how it goes and how the model tends to run for you guys?
Yeah, the motto that launched Equality FC was a rising tide lifts all boats, and in actual fact, what that's borne out is you'll see some of the deals that we've announced as a club with companies like Zero, Lyle & Scott, some pretty heavy hitters who put some money into the club. They've done so because of the success and the publicity around the women's team. Well, that's helping the men's team because the money that they bring in is shared equally. So the thing we do have detractors within the club. We do have fans, long-term fans of the men's side who didn't want anything to do with the women's team and didn't see what the equality thing was all about, and they didn't understand it and they didn't want it. But the reality is that the club's financially better off because of it. It's been a successful model. It's also the right thing to do because both sets of players put the same amount of effort in and the same commitment. And in many cases, when they started out, the women, Lewes ladies as was, it used to cost them a lot of money to play football. So rewarding them equally is the only right thing to do in any right thinking person's mind. And it's a workable model. It's a model that's functioning and working well. And Maggie Murphy, our CEO, has really got behind the work that was laid down by Ed Ramsden and Charlie Dobris, who they were the directors who came up with the idea of Equality FC, and they really wanted to push that model forward. And she's carried on their work and she's pushing it even further. And we've got partners now. Again, I'll mention them again. Zero, great company. They're getting heavily involved in the game on Sunday. They're back in the game. They have put their money where their mouth is because they say, yeah, what you're doing, that's exactly how it should be. Why should someone sitting next to someone else in an office be paid twice as much because of where they store their gonads? Absolutely no. Nonsense.
Detractors from it might say that the men's side is in I think it's the Isthmian Premier League. You're in there, is that right?
Isthmian Premier, yeah, pushing for the playoffs.
In that respect, because it's lower down and the budgets are already going to be relatively low as it is anyway, that perhaps for a club like yourself, it's a lot easier to do if you are Manchester United.
100%, totally take that on board.
Trying to get that equality would be incredibly difficult because you would literally
take that on board
from the men to give to the women. Would that be
that's
fair?
Why the FA Cup is the vehicle to help to deliver some of this, deal with some of this disparity. We're not suggesting that Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, start chainsawing their billions and spreading the money out around like manure. What we are saying though is that there is a vehicle, and it's a very obvious one, which is the FA Cup and the FA for all. They have an opportunity. They have money that is not linked. The income of the FA is not entirely linked to revenue generated by clubs, and specifically when you look at the imbalance of how the prize money is divvied up at the moment, it's not even fair to most of the other league clubs that are playing in the FA Cup and the men's side. All the money is going to the clubs with all the money. It's a ridiculous situation. So all the people at Lewes have done is to look at it and say, well, how could we take all that money and share it out equally throughout the competition, still leave the lion's share with the clubs that go further and do well. But let's face it, Marc Skinner doesn't want 50 grand for winning the FA Cup or 100 grand for winning the FA Cup. He wants the trophy. He wants the silverware. He wants the kudos. And the same goes for the men. The same goes for the men's team. Pep Guardiola wants the Champions League trophy. He doesn't give a toss about the millions that come with it. Maybe his owners do. I don't know. But the bottom line is the clubs that are getting all the money don't need it. The clubs that need it aren't getting it. And there's a really fair and equitable way of doing it. and the FA is the vehicle to do that.
I think it's a very good point, because what you mentioned so far, you're absolutely right. £3 million, for example, to Manchester United is a drop in the ocean when you consider the amount of money they get from the Europa League, the Champions League, winning the Premier League. We've done that for a decade, but even just finishing in the Premier League is quite a good thing to get. And just going down to some of the things here, I mean, you guys have earned, through winning your 3 games, £45,000 just from the women's team. And what's amazing is that the clubs that in the men's side that enter the 3rd round of the FA Cup get £450,000, which is 10 times the amount. Now, £450,000 given to one club for getting into the 3rd round of the FA Cup. The total prize money for the Women's FA Cup was £428,915. So one club is getting paid more money in the men's game than the entirety of the amount shared out amongst all of the teams in the Women's FA Cup. And what you've just mentioned there is this point of putting that money out to make it £3 million for everybody to share out. And what an amazing thing that would be. I mean, we said you guys have earned 45 grand because you've managed to get through all of the rounds that you've got through. And the winning team will get £100,000 just winning the final. They get 50,000 for winning the semi-final, 25,000 for winning the quarter-final, 20,000 for the 5th round. So really, you're looking at about 200, maybe 250,000 pounds. But the chances are that's going to someone like Chelsea, someone like Manchester United, someone like Arsenal, Manchester City, who, let's be honest, they're not skint, are they? They've got a few quid. That's a bit like your nipper coming up to you and going to have a pound for the machines. Dad, it's like, yes, of course you can. There you go. See you later. And that's kind of where we are, isn't it? Is that you're right in what you say. And every football anthem, the chants were going out last season for this, no ifs, no buts. We want an equal FA Cup. Aidan, is this something? I mean, I don't know quite how deep into the club you've been, apart from, being the season ticket holder and that sort of thing. But at some point, you must have made a transition from being a sort of a diehard men's football fan into realising what an absolutely brilliant game the women's game is and how much they deserve that little bit of help. And this is, as you said, the perfect vehicle.
It's exactly that. Like, originally, I'm from the West Midlands. I'm from Wolverhampton, so I'm born in Wolverhampton. I'm a Wolves fan of the men's team. But when I moved to Lewes nearly 10 years ago now, and kind of came across the ethos that the club was going through, that Ash has eloquently explained already, it just seemed to fit perfectly with everything else. Like, why is this a new thing? Was the thing that I kind of realised when I kind of joined up and started going to games and getting invested in the team and kind of looking into the background of it and researching the game and the women's side of the game in particular. And it got me and some of my friends really interested to go and watch the internationals that were held here last summer. And it just kind of, it spurred us on to keep going into more into it. So I think that, as we've already talked about earlier, like the opportunity is there. The fact that they've managed to get equal opportunity for school kids already, or with pushing stuff through to get opportunities for all boys and girls to play football at any age at school is a fantastic start. But I think there's so much more that they can still do. And I really hope that they can kind of use that initiative to keep pushing things on to make this as equal and as fair as possible.
Yeah, TJ's made a good point there in the comments. He thought that they increased the payouts on the women's side. They did, but they increased the men's by more, so the gap's bigger. Absolutely.
The men's went from 15 million, TJ, to 19 million. So, like I say, it's just even wider. And that's what I mean. They've stuck 4 million into the men's pot, which is lovely. But you could have just given that 4 million to the women straight away, and then that would have been an easy job. You wouldn't have had to worry too much about anything else.
But Lewes is also talking about distributing the money further down the rounds to the earlier rounds, because they're the clubs that need the money. So it's not necessarily about, obviously the winner should get the lion's share or should get at least the biggest individual award, but ease it out, spread it out, spread the love, because some of these men's clubs down in the non-leagues that are doing these early rounds of, they get through 3, 4, 5 rounds of qualification. It means it's the difference between life and death in terms of the football club. If they could double or triple the amount of money they get in those earlier rounds. And as you've just brilliantly pointed out, Barry, there's just this is water off a duck's back to some of the bigger clubs. They're just not. It's not the sort of money that's going to make the difference to them signing a big player. It's just not. It's not going to make a difference to them. But it would make the world of difference to some of the clubs that are progressing through the earlier rounds. So it's not just about the women. It is about the women, but it's also about the non-league clubs and the smaller clubs, and even some of the league clubs now that we know that are having really tough times.
And I suppose in what I think would be an absolutely wonderful sort of end to this conversation, you'd be in a situation where if the money was increased, Lewes women, for example, if they was getting, instead of getting 20,000, I think it is for winning, or even taking part, about 10 grand, I think, is in this round. If you'd have made that, and that was 10, 20 times more because of what had happened with the £4 million or £3 million increase, you could potentially be taking home six figures. And that, from the model you've got, would be women's football bringing in and actually helping out men's football as well. In the case that, because everything would be distributed equally, in the same way that if the men went off on some sort of mad FA Cup run, ditto. And that's surely what it's all about, because you are Lewes FC, we are Man United FC, and that should be it. We should all be scratching each other's backs, for want of a better way of putting it.
Yeah, and it also gets buy-in from fans across the two sides. I mean, you do get, I know fully well that Man United have got fans who only want to know about the men's side, don't want to know about the women's side, and actually some that only want to follow the women and don't particularly care about the men. And it's very much the same at Lewes. You know, most people have got an interest in both, but there are those who just don't want to know, and that's fine. It's okay. It's not a problem. You know, each to their own kind of thing. But ultimately, it helps to cross those little divides. It helps to break down those barriers. You know, we all started out following women's football, getting involved at some point. I thought it was rubbish 15 years ago when I first sort of heard about it and started noticing it. And then I started going down to watch Lewes, and then I've watched them grow and grow and grow. And there's still a long way for them to go, but they're just light years away from where they were. And we've got to bridge those gaps. We've got to cross those divides, and if we can show that there is a benefit to clubs having women's teams and supporting the women's teams, and actually financially helpful to clubs to do that, then the game itself will grow. And what you're doing is investing in a growing market, not pouring more money into a saturated market, which is what the top end of the men's game is.
Absolutely. Chaps, I've had an absolutely brilliant time talking to you both. I'm so pleased we were able to find you guys, and really pleased the enthusiasm these guys showed for coming on was absolutely awesome. And a big shout out to Joe as well, who helped us to find you. So that was really good. So cheers, Joe. Cheers, you two. I'm going to leave Connor to tidy up and finish the game with you lot, because I'm on double duty. I've got to pop over to the men's channel now. So I'll leave you guys here. But thank you very much, everyone. And Connor, my friend, over to you.
Yeah, cheers for coming on, Barry. Appreciate it. Go and check out the men's channel. It's literally live now, as soon as Barry gets over there. Talking obviously about Real Betis and looking ahead to another Spanish side in Sevilla in the next round. But we can't end this before doing score predictions. So I'll come to you both. I think Joe was in the chat earlier asking for a couple of score predictions. And I think there was a couple of high scores in there. I think Joe went for penalties. Lewes win on penalties, I think it was. Alex gone for 5-1 United. TJ's gone for 5-0. Although if it does go to penalties, then Lewes, we've not been great on penalties this season. We've already lost twice. So that wouldn't be good. John's gone for 4-0. What are you both saying in terms of a score prediction for Sunday?
The obvious prediction is a landslide for United. But if there's going to be an upset this weekend, it's going to be this game, and I'll go 2-1 Lewes.
Aidan, for yourself?
I think it depends. Oh, go on. I'll go Lewes on penalties. I'm gonna stick with Joe. I'm gonna go. If we go penalties, why not? Yeah, Lewes on penalties. 1-1.
That's fair enough. I mean, I've got to be honest. There's obviously a lot of United fans in the comments saying 7-1. Alex has gone 6-0. This is a harder test for me than the Sunderland game. Personally, I don't know. I'm a little bit more the fact that you've got obviously further. I know obviously Sunderland played in the last round. I think this is going to be tougher than people think, and that's why I'm a little bit concerned. I don't know whether I'm overthinking it a bit, and we might win comfortably. there's something in me that thinks this is going to be a lot harder than
It's going to go one or two ways, isn't it, Connor? I mean, you're going to be 3-0 up in 20 minutes, in which case you've got nothing to worry about. Or if it's tight as a drum and it gets to half time, then you can start sweating.
That's what I'm worried about. If the game is still as the Sunderland game was, obviously they equalised and it was really tight. Towards the obviously we got the winning goal literally a minute or so afterwards, but we were hanging on, towards the end of that game. So, if it's a close game, I really don't want penalties because, as I said, we've already lost twice this season. Need a big win after last week's disappointment, 100%. If we go and lose this one as well, what could have been a title-winning season, FA Cup or something, but out of both, that would be major disappointment. That's for sure. Right, we'll wrap it up there then. I'll just come to you both to shout out your Twitters or anything else that you want to shout out while you're on here for people to check out. So, Ash, for yourself, people want to follow you, or if there's anything else that you want to.
Yeah, well, it's on there. It's at Rookmeister. I've been doing that for about 11, 12 years. So, and it's usually most things Lewes FC. So, give us a follow. I'm not prolific other than at game time, so I won't bore you to death. Come and say hello.
100%. And Aidan, for yourself?
Yeah, mine's Gibbo_AS. Not overly active on Twitter, to be honest, but I do retweet quite a few bits and stuff from the club. So go to the club and you'll find me there retweeting it or liking it or doing something like that along the way. So yeah, come and say hello if you're down.
100%. Make sure you go and check that out. Obviously, we've spoken about the Equal Epic Cup thing as well. Go and check out that letter. And there's somewhere to sign, isn't there? I believe, or somewhere you can.
You can. There is a link for. I'll find it and retweet it again after this. You can add your name. It's a very simple thing. Just add your name to the list, and it'll be added to the letter as well and sent to Karen Carney.
100%. Go and check that one out. I agree with a lot of these comments as well. Good luck to Lewes. Hope you don't get battered. And I agree with that one. All the best for the season, just after Sunday. once we've got Sunday out of the way. Yeah, it's been great to have you both on. You've had a great insight over the last hour and 20 minutes or so. This channel will be back live, obviously, on Monday. We'll be talking about the game, usual time, usual people for the match reaction and all things going into next week as we build up to Old Trafford next Saturday as well. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you're liking the video and subscribing, and we'll see you all in the next one.